next thing I want to speak about is sort of my journey from Miss Lincolnshire into Miss England. So I think the first time I met you was when I was at the British Red Cross, and I came in to speak to you and mentioned then about having the title of Miss Lincolnshire and what sort of my ambitions and ethos was at that time. And from that time to now, I've developed that into something where I've got a specific ethos which I'm going to follow, and then I have a 5-point plan to be able to actually put my ethos and my project into action, because I thought it's fine to say that you're going to do this and that whilst you've got a title, but to be able to follow it through after you've not got that title anymore, you need to have a plan in place to ensure that you can uphold the standards that you've essentially been speaking to people about and promising that you're going to help with. So first of all, obviously, I completely understand that statistics don't change overnight, and therefore anything that I'm speaking about now regarding my ethos and my plan and potentially how you could help me with that is something that I'm in for the long haul, and is something that I'm not just going to sort of sack off after I've given my title of Miss Lincolnshire over, because I do strongly believe in my plan that if a couple of the points even are followed, that we could really see an increase in the amount of equality, diversity and inclusion. So I'll start off first talking about my ethos. So my personal ethos is to inspire, educate, empower and advocate. By inspire, I mean specifically looking at younger generations, because it is now the youth of today that we're looking at to be our future firefighter staffing, and particularly throughout the younger generations, looking at those from equal, diverse and inclusive backgrounds to ensure that we've got the right people applying for these jobs, but also that we're ensuring that we're keeping up with our promise to have an equal, diverse and inclusive workforce. To educate, by this I mean everybody, because it shouldn't just be educating the younger generation, it shouldn't just be educating parents, because every single person can use the fire service or any emergency service for that reason, and therefore I believe that's why it's important to educate and have that education available to everybody, specifically about having the importance of an equal and diverse workforce. As we discussed earlier, people can say that they understand what EDI is, but they might particularly only know what it stands for, or they might particularly only know the definition of it, but we've discussed that. Do they actually know what it means and why it's important to have that in place? Because people might just assume, oh yeah, we're equal, diverse and inclusive because we've got, a good mix of different genders, but it's not specifically just about gender, because it is so much more than that. We've spoken about diversity of thought and diversity of culture, and to have that education in plan there, which is a really big and key part of what I want to do throughout my time as holding this title, but also after that, is something I feel very passionate about. In terms of empowerment, regarding specifically women, girls and other minorities who have got a lower representation in the fire services, so they can see that they are capable of doing these careers, but also to empower them about the different types of careers that we've got going on, because again, as we touched on earlier, people think big red engine, you go out to fires, you go out to car crashes, that's it. But there's so much more to the fire service and what makes it so it can be functional. And by advocacy, specifically I'll be advocating for the fire services in England, and saying how I feel they could be a brilliant career for many in various different ways, because you've got so many different suitabilities that can apply to it throughout the variation of different careers that we actually do offer as well. So going on to my 5-point plan, these are more sort of broad spectrum ideas that I've got which are for me personally to achieve, not specifically for the fire service to do as well. So for me personally, my plan includes educational visits to schools, colleges and also fire stations, because as I said earlier, education is for everybody, and as much as we might like to think that, you know, everybody in the fire service should know what equality, diversity and inclusion is, because it's a part of our core value, you know, by the Fire Chief Council, and it's about really going back into those settings and having a refresher almost about why it's important, but also at the same time having some sort of representation there to show why it's important and how the people already working for us can then go on, as you say. You know, was it 84% that wanted to be advocates for the fire and rescue service? You know, let's make that even higher and show them why they should be advocating for people to work in this sector. And my second point is to be a part of a recruitment campaign. So I would specifically like to work with different fire services in England to look at their recruitment campaigns and see how they perhaps might be interpreted differently from looking at different people. Say for example, this isn't specifically a recruitment campaign, but this is a very, very popular, well-known book of how to become a firefighter, and the first thing that you look at is it's for a man.
Picture on the front.
And it's not telling you that it's open to everybody. And I think, you know, even little things like that, even though it's specifically not recruitment based, we really need to be looking at and considering how we're coming across to every single person in the community so we can appeal to them all as well. And then my next point is to be sort of undertake an ambassadorial role for the fire and rescue services, specifically looking at Humberside, as of course this is my local fire brigade and it's also one that I work in as a fire cadet leader, so that would, you know, be something to discuss a little bit further with you later. And I would also love to take a speech, sort of an inspirational speech to every brigade in this country to inspire them to also make a change, because as much as it is, you know, working with Humberside and Lincolnshire Fire and Rescue Services, that's only a very minute part of all the brigades that we've got across England, and it really needs to be something that we can all work on as a consensus to ensure that every single brigade is making an effort or to do something, you know, conclusive, and ensure that there's that effort being made by every single one of them, not just a couple, because of course that will definitely affect, you know, the amount of people that we're getting from equal and diverse backgrounds, but only in those two brigades, not in specifically England itself. So for me personally, that will be another part of my plan to take, you know, speeches, whether it be for other chief fire officers like yourself, to be able to speak to them and see what their opinions are on it and how they could perhaps make a change. And then my last point is to start up a new positive recruitment campaign across Humberside and Lincolnshire to promote equality, diversity and inclusion. So that specifically is my 5-point plan, which I'm aiming for, as, you know, it's a personal goal of mine to be able to complete that. And whilst it definitely might seem ambitious, because, you know, I'm not just talking about a couple of the brigades that are close to me, I'm talking about also the whole of England, I think it's important that we address it as a countrywide matter, because it's not just a matter in Humberside or just a matter in Lincolnshire, it's something nationwide that affects every single brigade.